Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. It's Aunty T live. Aunty T live on Instagram. Can you believe it? Hello, hello, Grace. Thanks for joining. Mama G, nice to see you. OT, nice to see you. Akila, hello, Yemi. Nice to see you. Ose, how you doing? My goodness, wifey's closet. Nice to see you. Uncle Bumi, nice to see everyone. This is great. I'm so excited. It's nice to finally get this going. I mean, this has been in the pipeline for quite a while, and it's just amazing. Hi, Timmy. Timmy, I can see you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining, everyone. Oh, gosh, I am excited. This is my first Insta Live, so we're just going to do it the way God wants me to do it. Thank you so much all for joining. My name is Aunty T. I'm sure if you're joining, you know my name is Tubosu, but yes, I'm Aunty T. And this is Young and Strong Series 1. How did Young and Strong come about? I'm somebody who's passionate, who loves working with young people. And I've been wondering, okay, what are we going to do after 2020? What is the next step? What am I supposed to be doing with my young people? And it dropped into my heart one day that young people, Nee, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming on board. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I thought, let me continue my story. And I thought, what am I going to do with young people? What does God want me to do with young people? High blessings. And it dropped in my heart that young people are young and strong. And it came to my heart, hi, Patience. Nice to see you. Vicky Grace, I've been waiting for you to join me. Thanks for coming, Fikayo. And I knew in my heart that there is something for young people in these times, in this season. It's been tough, yes, but you haven't lost your strength. You haven't lost your zeal. You haven't lost your enthusiasm. You're still who God wants you to be. And you're going to become all God wants you to become. You're going to do everything God wants you to do. And that comes from the scripture that is the basis for what I'm doing. I mean, when God says, I speak to you young people. Why? Because you are strong and the word of God abides in you and you have overcome the evil one. It's nice to see you. It's nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining. And I think it's very important in this time and in this season, not for me to just come or anybody to just come and to just talk to young people. I want to know what you are saying. I want to know, my gosh, it's my big brother. Told me, hi, nice to see you. And there's my sister, Fundala. Thanks for coming. Thank you, Darcy Williams. Thank you, everyone. And I think it's important not just for you to talk to young people, but to hear what they have to say. I'm interested in hearing what they have to say. I'm interested to know what life is like from the point of view of that young man, from the point of view of that young woman. And that's why we're here. Let's hear this. Hello. Sister Boss said, thanks for joining, thanks for joining, thanks for joining. And so we're starting off young and strong by listening to one young person, giving us different points of view, giving us what life is like. And young people that are on there, I want you to just comment. This is yours. I'm just the one who's sitting in the chair and coordinating everything, but this is about you guys. And those of us that are not as young as we used to be, I want you to be part of this. Listen to the young people. Let's see what they have to say. And from that, we'll also learn how we can be a blessing, how we can support, how we can help them in these times and in this season. So, Abi, whenever you're ready, I'm ready. I'm looking forward to what you have to say. I'm looking forward to how we're going to collaborate and how we're going to talk to our young people today. So today, Young and Strong is ready for you live. Young and Strong is ready to talk to you today. Hello, 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 Bossy. I'm sure you're excited. This is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be an interesting one. I'm just bringing up my person, my lovely, lovely young lady. She's very special to me. When she comes on, Hello, girl.
Hi, Aunty.
Hello, girl. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Very, very well. This is Abby. Abby and I, we know how we got here, didn't we? You
Yes.
know how we got
Yeah.
We've been on this journey together. And so it's good. Who else could be my first person if not you, Abby? So, like I said, this is about the young people. I'm just a pretty older face, and you are the young, pretty face. So, we're going to be doing this together. So, before we go on, I've told them a little bit about myself. I'm Aunty T. I love working with young people. I've been doing youth ministry for over 20 years. That shows you that I'm not as young as I used to be, but that's me. So, over to you, Abby. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Abby. I'm 19. I study law at the University of Leicester.
Okay.
Some of my interests, I like singing. I was in the choir under Auntie T at our church. And yeah, that's just a bit about myself.
Right, so you're studying law. Well, guess what? And Titi, well, sometime in my former life, I used to be a lawyer too. I did study law. I do have a master's degree in international law, but it's been ages. It's been ages. So that's Abby for you. You're going to be hearing from Abby today. Abby, should we go right into it now?
Yeah, I think we should.
Right. Okay, you're a young person, 19. Um, this has been interesting times, and a lot of times people come and they say, young people, young people are this, young people are that. So tell me something that has always intrigued me. What are the kind of challenges that young people actually have? We assume a lot about you guys, but you tell me, when you, as young people, what are really the kind of challenges that young people have?
I think I'd say in terms of staying on your own path, because people are doing so many different things. There are so many different ways to go about your life out there. So not necessarily this being a bad thing because you can get inspiration from other people, but when you allow different things around you to affect the path that God has for you or the path that you should go down, that's when it becomes a problem. So I think that it's not bad to get inspiration. It's not bad to see things around you. However, when you allow it to affect your path and your destiny, that's when it becomes a problem. And
So
also,
when you say the bad things, when you say the things, when you say they go off their path, what are the kind of things that you think we would say, okay, these are the kind of things that actually affect young? I mean, up to an extent, I know when I'm talking, I'm sure some of my contemporaries, because I've got contemporaries too, my peers, we know the kind of things that, affect us. We know the kind of things like maybe at my point in time, I'm thinking about money, I'm thinking about the house, I'm thinking about kids, I'm thinking about, so as a young person, what are the kind of things that you say you guys have challenges with?
I think someone said it in the comments. I can't say the name. Stay in your lane. That's what I'm trying to say. It's so important to stay in your lane because someone else could be saying, oh, I want to get into, I don't know, let's say trading, for example. Someone's doing trading at the moment and I see them, I'm like, oh, I want to do trading too, but God's not wanting me to do trading at the moment. Does that make sense?
Right.
Or someone's trying to do this fashion thing and I'm like, oh, let me try fashion. It's not to say you shouldn't try things, but it's not everything that other people do that you must do. You have to stay in your lane and remember that God may want you to be doing something else, and then you're now seeing someone else do something, and then you start doing it. That's the kind of thing I mean. So that's just an example because I know a lot of people now are getting into trading. I know a lot of people are doing all kinds of like different side hustles. And I'm not saying don't do a side hustle, don't do that. But remember who you are and what you should be doing because God would, by God's grace, God will speak to you and tell you, oh, maybe you shouldn't really be doing that. Let's try something else. So I think that's what I mean.
So do you think that because why do you think that happens? Fashion. Oh, somebody's trading. Oh, yeah, somebody's going into IT. Why do young people get drawn into what everybody else is doing? Is there something that kind of influences that? Why? Is there something when young people are looking for? Is there a reason?
Yeah, that leads me on to my next point because the next thing I was going to say is the idea of success. But for us, it's so big, as in everyone wants to do well, everyone wants to do well quickly. Like everyone wants to say they've done this or they've achieved this or they're working on something right now. And I feel like as young people, we need to understand that sometimes some seasons you don't have to be doing something. Sometimes God just wants you to just wait and just be still and not always be doing something. So I feel like everyone has something to prove, not only to themselves, maybe to their families, to other people around them. So in that, people are trying to see, oh, this person's doing this, let me see if it works for me. It's a lot to do with what you can do, who you can prove it to. And it's good to, you know, believe in yourself and say, oh, let me look at this, let me see if I can do it. But it's when you let the chase for success affect the path that God may have you or what you should be doing, that's when it will become a bit of a problem.
All right. So is it sort of like, because somebody said the word, I saw in the comments, somebody said image, that there's this image. Is there an image that young people aspire for? Is there some kind of, this is how I want to be? And when you talk about, they want to have success, what is the definition, if I can ask? What are they looking at and they're saying, okay, this is success, I've got to get onto this, you know, and that way, yes, then I can prove to everyone. So is there kind of like an image? Is there kind of like something that showed that we similarly think that is success? Is there an image?
For me, no, but I know for a lot of people there is, as in it's financial freedom, financial independence. They want to be able to provide for their family. They want to be, and it's a good thing to want to be financially free, financially independent, but God may want you to get there a different route to the way everyone else is doing it. So I think yeah, that's what I would say. It's a lot financial focus.
Right. Somebody is saying social media influencers. Is that something that people see? Is there something that young people see and they say, yeah, that's what I know? And I'm not trying to be like a stereotypical or anything. I know that sometimes whenever you see these images and you see cars and you see houses and you see clothing and you see all kinds of things, and you know, young people, and I don't want to get on your parade and just start saying, yeah, as a young, I know what young people think. That's why you're here. You're supposed to come and educate me on that. So is there something they see and they say, this is what success looks like? You, not for you really, but I'm sure you've talked to your contemporaries and they'll tell you, yeah, this is what we want. Like a funny story I once had, I was talking to some young person and they were telling me, you know what, the weave you wear is very important, because if you don't wear that, I tell you no lie, that if you don't wear that one, then, you know, they're going to make fun of you. And I, for the life of me, I thought, what's up with that, you know? So is that kind of like, you know, there's something that's aspiring to because of what we see around us?
Yeah, definitely. That hair made me laugh because it's quite funny.
Okay, I tell you true. Honestly, I wouldn't lie. It is true. And so have you ever been, I mean, you don't have, you can say yes, no, Aunty T. We're not going to talk about that live on Instagram. But has there been any time when you've seen something where you've had a moment and you're like, oh dear, I shouldn't have gotten into that, you know? Maybe I should just backtrack, you know, what I call the oops moments of young people?
I think it's more because with me, when I see things that I like it's even something as small as like clothes. It's like, you don't need to buy that. You might want to get it because you see it on an influencer, or you need to get this collection of things. If you have the means to, and if you feel that at the time you can, then fair enough. But with the hair and everything, I think because of how nice it looks, because of the editing, because of everything, everyone's like, okay, they woke up, they did a few things, and then that's what they look like. But no one sees, as someone mentioned, no one sees the process to get in there. So I think that's another thing. People don't realize the process to get to where these people have gotten to, I think. But for me, it's just more, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice. But because it's nice, it doesn't mean I must now get it. That's nice.
Okay, so that's some of the things that somebody says something really funny. Oti says, yeah, we all assume they woke up looking like that. Not really. Not really. Now we've talked about the things which are think are a bit more external, the things we can see. But we know that's not all that goes on in young people's lives. We know there's some of the challenges that people cannot see, you know, and sometimes I wonder about that, especially from in recent times, what's been going on. So, I mean, I'm sure you talk to your peers. I'm sure you have conversations amongst yourselves. What kind of inner struggles, what kind of things, I mean, it might not be you necessarily, but I'm just really, really curious, what kind of inner struggles, you know, the things that they don't talk about, the things that they won't tell us about, what kind of things would you say young people are facing these days, the difficulties? What would you say?
I think currently with the pressures of the pandemic, with the pressures of coronavirus and everything, if we're talking about currently with uni and school and everything, it's ensuring that you're still succeeding regardless. So it's almost pushing aside the way you may feel in order to succeed and still do well, which I think is hard and difficult. And I'm not saying people aren't sensitive to it, but I think people need to be more aware of it, because having to get the same level of work done, having to still prosper, having to still do well is going to be hard with a global pandemic. So I think that's one thing. And I think mental health in general, I think if you're talking about the older generation, people being more adaptable.
What do you mean the old generation? You're talking about
No, like, just, I don't know, let's even talk about parents and things. I'm not saying that people aren't like this, but I'm just saying if they are, they should continue to be sensitive and just realize that it's very, very difficult in terms of mentally with the lockdown again. So I think that's one thing that I'd say. The pandemic is just, fear of failure, I think someone said.
Yeah, I can see that. We're seeing a lot of stuff. People are talking about the fact that you're teenagers, you're trying to figure out where you are. You know, there's the mental health pressure, there's the pressure to succeed. Somebody put it as, I mean, Ope put it as, you want to blow. I remember I discovered that that phrase just last year, to say you want to blow. For the life of me, I'd never heard it before. Shows you which generation I am from, you know. And there's the teenagers, there's the mental health, there's a lot of pressure. So that would lead me to now asking, so when young people are under that kind of pressure, and thanks for the people who are commenting in the chat, where do they go? What do they do? What happens? Do you know?
I think a lot of people rely on one another, because if you're going through it, someone who's in the same position would be going through it as well. So I think it's easier for us as young people to speak to each other rather than maybe your parents. I think especially now, I'm not sure if that's for everyone, but a lot of people I've spoken to, they talk to each other about it because they'll understand it. They'll get less questions. There'll be less confusion as to how they're feeling. I think.
Do you think we don't understand you? Do you think, and I'm going to put myself squarely with the older generation, although I'm really trying to feel younger, but I'm going to have to represent. So do you think that we don't understand your generation? Do you think there's a disconnect? Honestly, don't worry. Talk to me.
The thing is, I don't think
sure.
It's a major issue. I think there's just more work that needs to be done in terms of bridging the gap. And I think that's where, like, the being sensitive and understanding, because the times that our parents lived in, very, very different to now. So therefore, as long as they're understanding and as long as they're sensitive to it, the disconnect, let's say, will not be as bad and severe, I think. So there is a disconnect, but I think it can be addressed by parents and the old generation being more sensitive.
Let's stop calling us the old generation. Don't say those of us who are ahead. We're just a little bit ahead of you guys. So I can see a lot of my young people are saying there's a disconnect, there's a disconnect, there's a disconnect. Now, disconnects can be different kinds of things. It might be we don't understand the language you're speaking. I mean, I can tell you for sure, having worked with teens for a while, sometimes I'm not sure whether you're speaking English or so, that I've heard all kinds of things like, oh, Aunty T, I'm gassed. The first, I love that one. Or, you know, or they blow and things like that. Molly, don't call me the elderly, you know, and, and you know, and so is it that we don't understand what you're saying, or is it that you think we're not processing what you're saying? Um, you know, because sometimes sometimes we are trying to understand. So is it that we don't understand each other? Because English, since my time, well, English has changed, I must tell you. But really, is it that we don't see? One of my contemporaries says is the lingo. Thank you for being here too. I don't feel so isolated anymore. But you know, is it that when you say the disconnect, how do we define that? What does the disconnect look like?
It's in terms of understanding what is normal, because what was normal before, in terms of, there's so many things in terms of lifestyle as well. The technological advancements have led to more focus on social media, things where you can be successful that was never possible before, in terms of education being the main focus before, whereas now you can be successful in so many other ways. So I feel as though if parents and people understand that it's not just education that can mean success or other things. And I'm not saying, oh, this is what is happening, because I don't know how people are in general, but I can only speak for what I've heard and what people have complained about, in a way, about people not understanding that it's not solely educational based success at the moment. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay. So, for example, I know in my time, I mean, there was a lot of focus on what we call the traditional kinds of occupations. You were either a lawyer or a doctor, but now you can be a gamer and that's a profession. You understand? You can be a dancer and that's a profession. And sometimes you think that's a bit of a disconnect as well. You can be a footballer, you know. Then if you played football, you were in trouble. You know that's sports. That's sport. That's not profession. But nowadays, there's that can be a profession. So you think we need to understand that?
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I don't want to say no one understands that, because I'm sure people do. But I think if people understand it more, they find it easier to understand or grasp the different ways of success, then the gap will be bridged a bit more. Yeah.
Okay, so somebody said that young people's issues look minuscule to us adults. That is, we seem to think that the things you're going through are not very important. Do you sometimes get that feel? I hope they called us the older generation, but I'll say those of us who are ahead, we're taking this because it'll be nice to find out what we think. I know I've got a couple of my friends on here as well. So do we think that when you come with your issues, we're like, oh, what do you mean? Is that all? Do you get that sometimes? That we're like, not really, that's not important.
I think it's, for me, I think it's less that it's not important. It's just they don't understand it. And it might come across as dismissive. But I feel because, do you know, I think it's more dismissive, as in, oh, as in, what's that? And it may come across as it's not important. But I think because they're so used to, what was the norm back then, that they need to adapt to the norm now. And some issues are more common now and they just haven't adapted yet. So I think that's where the adaptability aspect that I'm talking about comes in. But I think, as Prospero said, the way they deal or manage it needs to be better, as in understanding that some issues will not be as identifiable as they may like it to be, and just be understanding and sensitive to that.
All right. I know that I think it might be Chichi that says sometimes that we say, oh, it's just a phase, that you're just going through a phase. Or sometimes one of my, Yomi, my friend said, sometimes we compare and we say, after all, that child is not going through that. Why should you be going through that? You should just up again. Do you get that sense in sometimes the young people? I know when I was younger, we used to hate being compared with other kids. You just didn't like it. But maybe sometimes we're getting to that stage where we think by now you should be somewhere. And if you're not there, then, we don't recognize that maybe your lane, like you all said, your lane is different, and we need to understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, so, that'll take me to the next. I hope my contemporaries were taking notes about this. But at the same time, there's the flip side to it, because I noticed Blessing said, maybe young people need to be patient as well. If we look at the two generations, you and I are two generations. I don't know which one, whether you want to come to mine or I want to come to yours. But I'm not sure I'll fit into your clothes. But the thing about it is there a part for young people to thank you, Melissa, we got to take notes. Is there a part for young people to also understand where we are coming from? Do you think there's a part for young people as well to understand where we're coming from? Do you think there's a part for young people to understand where we're coming from?
I think that's partly what I was saying. I don't want to presume that it's easy for parents and people to adapt, because it will be hard to, which is why I feel like we need to give them some leeway and understand that they're not going to be used to the problems of the day. So I think it works both ways. We should also be understanding to that. Yeah.
Okay. So now understanding that sometimes we have that disconnect, we need to understand each other, we need to connect with each other. So right now, as young people, where do you go? I understand that you talk to each other, but I would assume that it's very difficult for two people going through the same thing to be able to help each other. So if I just ask, where do you think young people go when they have issues and they need to talk to somebody? Where do they go for counsel? Where do they go for comfort? Where do they go for advice?
A lot of people internalize it. That's the first thing I want to say. A lot of people internalize it because it's either they just want to get on with it. There's, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of a race, like they want everything to just be done a certain way. So if there's a struggle or something that they're battling with, they'll internalize it and just kind of, instead of dealing with it, just wait for it to pass. But other than speaking to one another, I know people who do confide in their parents, speaking to God about it and God directing them to who they should now speak to next. That's something that I've learned to do a lot more now. And yeah, that's what I'd say. But the internalizing thing, I know a lot of people who just, they don't really want to talk about the issues or the problems. When it comes to counsel, I'd say God, and then just anyone that you feel close or comfortable to enough to, yeah.
Okay, but I'm not comfortable with people internalizing stuff, and I'm sure that you would agree with me that that is not always the ideal.
No.
It's not the ideal because when it does all go, when it does, at some point it's going to blow up, and the last thing you want is young people blowing up. And we see all the time when there's so much internalized, unresolved issues, and it's important that young people understand, like somebody said, I think it's Neil that says there's got to be a meeting point where both generations come together, where you've got to understand, and now I'm speaking up for the older generation, you've got to understand that no matter what, there's still we've got some measure of wisdom. We don't know it all, and we might not say the way that young people want to hear it, but we've got something to say that's going to help.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for young people to understand that we care. We actually do care. And sometimes the way we come about it is a function of where we're coming from as well, just like you guys. You
Mm.
understand? And it's important for young people to understand that give us, you know, give us a little bit of space as well. Help us to understand that we're not the enemies here. You understand? Like, you're not the enemy as well. We're working for each other's common good, and the important thing at each point in time is for each generation to understand that the other one cares.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing.
It is important thing. It is an important thing. Now, one thing I also like to know that having talked about this, we've looked at it, we've said, okay, my generation, your generation, maybe coming from different places, but ultimately having the same goal of making sure that everyone is okay.
Mm.
Do you understand? What would you tell your contemporaries now, having kind of heard what I've got to say? What would you tell? I mean, if you could tell one of your contemporaries, one of your peers, that okay, this is what I would advise, rather than you internalizing, what would you tell them?
Is this specifically or in general? Is this specific to
To
this?
no, first of all, generally, I mean, having said that, a lot of young people would internalize what they feel. Now,
Mm.
what would you say? First and foremost, we both agree that that is not really ideal.
Mm.
So what would you tell them if you had somebody on there now who's just like, nobody understands me? What would you tell them as a young person, as a peer to peer now, before I tell you what maybe I would say?
I think this the best thing and the best person to turn to is honestly God. That the only the the person who can get you out of it is Jesus, as in the Lord will actually bring you out of whatever the situation is. So if your help comes from him, that's the first place, I would say. And that's what I've started doing. And then once you turn to him, he can now direct you to whoever, if he wants you to speak to another person. And for those who struggle to do that, I think the closest person to you, your family, I'd say. But as long as you don't, the main thing is not to internalize it, I think, because then I know from experience it will now build up, and that is what you don't want. So, yeah.
I agree. I agree. I mean, as somebody who works as, I mean, who serves as a counselor in a youth ministry, that's something we try to encourage, that come talk to us about it. I think, am I correct that sometimes young people feel that we're just going to automatically judge them for what they're going through, that you're going to meet with some measure of judgment?
Yeah, I think
Right.
I think
Oh,
so.
okay. Well, we don't judge you. We don't
Mm,
want to judge you. And I think it's important for young people to understand that we're not there to judge. Yes, we have ideas of what is ideal, what is the best, but I think I am coming from my generation now saying we do care. And we maybe we've learned our lessons a little bit, because there's been a lot of like they said, disconnect, and there's been a lot of no meeting of our minds. But it's important to know that everything should stem from love, like you said. And
mm,
I think as parents, as counselors, as aunts and uncles, as the older generation, we're coming to a place now we're beginning to realize that, okay, we want to understand you. We truly, truly want to understand you. And we want you to help us to understand you. And when we do that, then we're able to come together, we're able to deal with all these issues. And I think that's something that's important. And that's one thing I want my young people to know. Like you said, the first and ultimate is Jesus. You got to know the Lord for yourself. You got to be able to talk to him for yourself. You got to be able to understand that when you kneel and when you pray, he's listening. He's actually interested in what you have to say. And I think a lot of times, maybe sometimes young people look at God like they look at my generation. He's
mm,
out to judge them too. You
mm.
know, if you don't have a healthy attitude towards adults, it's very difficult to have a healthy attitude towards God, because I don't know about you, but I always think that God is an adult anyway. I don't think of him as a teenager or as a contemporary. So if you're thinking about him like that, then even approaching him, you would be a bit of a, there might be some measure of constraint about that. But he's not like that. He's not some adult who's waiting to judge you. He's not, he doesn't think like we think. He doesn't have some preconceived notions about life. And so, yes. And as we go to God, also, it's important for you to know that you can go to people who know a bit more than you. And I can say that we know a little bit more than young people. We know some things, and we don't want to alienate each other. There's got to be a meeting of the minds. And that's one thing I want to encourage. You know, that's one thing I want to encourage young people. Don't alienate adults. And we're not going to alienate you. Of course, it's a bitter bit to, let me tell you the truth, it's a bitter bit to swallow sometimes when you see some young things and you're like, huh? You know? But that is your generation, and we've got to come to a revelation and an understanding that it's not like we were. You guys don't dress the way we dress. You don't talk the way we talk. You don't do things the way we do things. A little bit of caution here and there, a little bit of boundaries here and there, but you can never be like us. Some of us try to be like you, but it doesn't always work. But, you know, but ultimately, we're there for the common good of each other. Right. So, I mean, what would you say? We've had this conversation. We've talked about different things. We've talked about young people and their challenges. We've talked about the relationship with the old and the young people. We've talked about different things. What is something that you would want to say, especially for those who are coming up as young people? Because I know you're 19 now. We've got a couple of maybe younger teenagers listening to us. What is one thing that you would want to say to them, and then something you would like to say to your contemporaries?
For those who are younger, I'd say give yourself room and allowance to, or give yourself and other people room and allowance to make mistakes, because if you don't, you'll struggle. And I'm not saying that you should expect things to go wrong or badly, but you should make allowance for those wrongs and other people's wrongs as well, because it will help you forgive easier, and it will help you not make those mistakes again. Because I think it's important to realize when you make those mistakes, it's an opportunity to learn. That's one thing I'd say.
Right, of course.
And then for my contemporaries, don't allow anyone to tell you how to live, because then you'll start living for them instead of living for God, and you'll start changing who you are when you really don't need to. So that's one. Those are the two things I'd say.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. So for the young girls, allow yourself to live, allow yourself to make your mistakes, allow yourself to become who you're supposed to be. And for the contemporaries who are, I would say, the older teens going into their 20s and all that, just become who you're supposed to be. I mean, for me, growing up, my story is a different one. As a teenager, I had my own challenges and all that. And I'm one of those who I'll call a late bloomer, in the sense that I came into myself a whole lot way down the line than maybe most people. But the ultimate about life is to discover who you are. And whoever you are is good. Whoever you are is good. Like Maudie says, be patient in life. We don't need to rush into it. Discover who you are, discover what you're like, and be comfortable. Be comfortable about who you are. One thing I remember telling some people, I think I was talking to a couple of young ladies about a while back, and I was saying that one thing I'm a bit concerned about is sometimes I feel as if young ladies are now being cloned, in the sense that this is what looks right, so this is what you're supposed to look like, and suddenly everyone is beginning to look the same. This is the fashion, so everybody dresses the same. This is the weave, so everybody dresses the same. But yeah, like we've agreed, allow yourself to be who you're supposed to be. Because if God took the time to make fingerprints completely different, who has the right to determine what is called beautiful? who was given the right to delineate what we call handsome? Who was given that right? So that means that everybody has the definition of what is beautiful. Everybody has the definition of what is handsome. Everybody has that definition because we're all different. And our difference is not good, bad. Our difference is called unique. So I don't know what else we want to say, but I'm just so, so grateful. And I really feel very honored for you coming on and just talking. Because I always like to hear. I always like, and I'm sure my contemporaries on here have taken one or two things. Like I said, the vision of Young and Strong is not for me to come and talk to you guys. It's for you to come and talk to us, to you to come and talk to me and to talk to your contemporaries about what life is like as a young person. And I hope that, Abi, you're doing well as a young person.
Thank you.
Standing, you're young and you are strong. Why? Because the word of God dwells in you and you've overcome the evil one. And what I would say to you is that we've got your corner. We have also got your corner. Help us to understand you, and I guarantee you, my desire is that we support you to become all you need to be and to do all you need to, and to do all you're supposed to be. Whether you want to be a footballer or you want to go to the moon, as long as you support us in our retirement plans, we're very good with that. You know, and that for us is the joy. And I'm sure, I mean, my contemporaries agree with that. And for the young people, be you. Abi, we agree. Be you. Be you, be you. This is Abi. Abi doesn't need to be anybody else. Be you, be you, be you, and do all that you need to do to be young and to be strong. Well, I don't know if we've got anything else. Abi, we got anything else for our young people? No. Everyone, I hope you got something from this. I hope this is the first in a series. I mean, in a couple of weeks we're going to be coming again. This is supposed to be bi-weekly because next week I have to breathe and just say, okay, I'm going to bring on a young, who knows what they're going to tell me, you know. And we're just going to be doing that every 2 weeks. And like I said, this is not about us, this is about them. And this is an opportunity to hear what they've got to say. So Abi, once again, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for talking to us, helping us to see from another point of view. And I'm sure that we're going to go learn some more lingo. We're going to be a bit more patient. And we're going to begin to recondition our minds so that we can support you guys, because that's what we as parents are. That's what we as aunties and uncles are. That's what we are as counselors. The greatest joy we can have is seeing you guys do well. Thank you so much, Abi. And thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you had a lovely time. Shop, sweet. But I hope that in 2 weeks you'll be joining us again when I'm going to be bringing on another inspirational young person just to come and give us an idea of what it's like to be young. Thank you, Abi. Thank you, everyone. God bless and have a good evening. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye.